My springs have been heat treated, and so here are packets. So this is the safety. These are the leaf springs, and these are the button return springs. And so this is like one of those reveals or something. We'll see how this is. This is the one I'm most interested in because it's definitely the one I spent the most time working on. So I heat treated them in the foil packets, and then I left them in the foil packets for tempering. So that's why they're still in there. So they have been spring tempered. They're just still in the packets. Try to cut this open without running into my spring. All right. There we go. Look at there. Nice. So I'll just get like a little Dremel buffing wheel with some buffing compound and shine all that up. I only have to shine up this much of it. So let's compare it to the original, one of the originals. So yeah. These are our button return springs, and so these were left on that card. Which is a really easy way for heat treating in batches. All right, those look pretty nice. So they should just snap out. See if I can snap this in. Well, it may take a little work, but we'll get those out later and test them. And then last but not least is our leaf springs. And so I have a concern about these leaf springs. I think they're going to be too thin. I went back and measured after I cut them out. You know, cut them out using my pantograph template. And I don't know if it's the direction of the cutter as I went around, if it tried to, had a tendency to bite in more. But where I was hoping they would be about 32 to 35 thousandths, they ended up being about 24 thousandths. So they should be good springs, but they're probably not going to be good enough. So if that's the case, I'll either make me some more and make me a new template that's thicker to compensate, or I'll use some of the other material. Oh wow, those look pretty nice. So you see they're pretty thin, but they turned out pretty good. I broke one of the springs out and ground the little tabs off and sanded it just a little bit. And we'll compare the two. See if I can get this where you can see both of them. So of course this is the one that was out of the knife. It's got a little bit of a curve to it. So let me see if I can match the curve of the spring. So mine's perfectly flat right now. So no curve to it. So let me see if I can match this. I'm just going to take my pliers and just start putting a light bend in it. Let's see if you can get where you can see this. Wanting to form it, but not risk snapping it. So since it's a spring, it's going to want to go back. It's kind of a tendency to want to go back. So I got to over bend it in order for it to stay. All right, I'm not getting, I didn't really get anywhere with that. Let me cut the camera off and get after it and see if I can get this bend to match. Hopefully it won't break. Well, let me tell you where I am with these. So I had 7. I punched 3 of them out and I broke all 3 of them. So this is not going to work. Maybe I should have tempered at a higher temperature. I tempered it at the same temperature that I did the other one. I mean, they're definitely springy. I mean, so you saw that like when I was trying to form that other one, but the problem is it went exactly back to where it was. So there are a couple of options. One is I could bend them before I heat treat, and then I think they would be perfect. I was hoping to heat treat them, then bend them, but it just won't work. Now, my other option is to use some of this, and this is what I use actually in my lever action autos. And this is a piece of 20 thousandths spring material, so it's not stainless. You can tell there's some kind of corrosion on there. It's been blued, it's blue tempered. And so what I could basically do is just Dremel this shape out, and that's simple enough to do. I may end up doing that out of a piece of this just to get this knife going instead of going back through, working on these again. In fact, I tell you what, I hadn't really talked about this, but so this knife, I saw one of these years and years, probably 20 years ago. Ted McMahon, the guy that taught me to make knives, had some parts. And I actually attempted to make some of these, and I didn't know what I was doing, but so there's a blade cut out. I never did anything with it, with these things, but these are some parts I found that I pulled out. This was the original spring. Okay. This is the one I made at the time, which wasn't too bad. I think I probably made it out of a piece of this, to be honest with you. Get in focus. This across the top was just a piece of nickel silver rod that I soldered on there. But it looks pretty nappy, so I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to find a better way. But you can tell there's corrosion and rust down there. That's what makes me think that I used this, because I don't recall, but I think I used this. In fact, I probably torched it on the bottom and then bent it. It works quite nice. So that was, like I say, probably 20 years ago. I was looking for a better way to do it. This was the original, I think. No, this is actually the one I Dremeled. I think I Dremeled it out of a piece of that, because if you notice, it kind of tapers, like it's not parallel from end to end. So there they are side by side. So that may end up being how I do this next one. And then we hadn't got to this part yet, but this is the button. So let's see, this was the original nickel silver button. And this was the one I tried to make out of a nickel silver rod that I peened and ground down. So you can tell that my piece is a whole lot too thick. And that's about as far as I got with it at the time. Pulling this out after 20 years, I'm kind of impressed with myself, to be honest with you. This was the back piece, and so evidently this one was a single blade. And so I don't think this spring would fit in here. It would need to be longer. But those were some parts. So that was a very crude attempt. The biggest issue that I had was trying to make the liner, and that's where I gave up, because remember when we talked about this liner, that if you look at where the pin goes, that these were cut and rolled over. And I tried to cut it with a jeweler saw and roll it over, and it was terrible. And that's when I kind of gave up. But after all these years, when this knife came my way, I thought, I'm going to reattempt this, and I'm just going to start from scratch. Trying to do everything in stainless, but I'm probably going to make that button spring out of this material right here. All right, well, I think the last thing that I want to do for this video is test out these leaf springs. And so I put two in here side by side so you can see a comparison of them. And these are both the ones I made. This is not the original. I don't want to put the original in there and risk breaking it by pushing it all the way down like this. But I'm just going to push it down multiple times and see if it returns to where it was. And it is. So these are good. The CPM 154 springs, they're great. 410, eh. So I think the leaf springs were successful, except for they need to be thicker. Like I said, this is, I'd rather it be about 32 to 35 thousandths. These are around 24. The button safety, well, the button spring was a bust in that 410. Now, I know I could probably retemper it at a higher temperature, so you may be thinking, oh, just retemper it at a higher temperature. Well, I don't know if I talked about this or not, but on all those strips, I tempered everywhere from 625 to 750, and they were all just as brittle when I tried to do a bend in them. So I don't know what the deal with that is, but so I'm not going to use 410 for. Or I could pre-bend those things and then heat treat them. I could do that, just like I'm doing with a safety. So anyway, the safety I feel like was successful, except for it's a little bit thick. So I might need to find some thinner material, or maybe even do it out of nickel silver if I can find some thin nickel silver like that. But I was kind of wanting to keep everything stainless if I can. The springs for the button return, if I have to go carbon steel, that's fine. It's under a handle, so you're not going to see it. Where if you look down in the knife, you're going to see these springs, and you know, if you look at the top of the safety, you know, you'll see it, so it's stainless. So anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that button return spring. I'm thinking about maybe just making it out of that blue spring material just to move on. But I'm also really thinking about ordering something else, like some really thin 5160 or maybe 1095, or even that. I'm going to look into that, 17-4 stainless, and see what's up with that. Because I would like to cut them out on my pantograph and make multiple parts at once, and then heat treat them, and then be able to bend them, or maybe bend them and then heat treat them. So anyway, we'll see how that works out.